Hello, and welcome back to the Simplifiers podcast, where we take topics in work and in life and simplify them. And friends, it is a beautiful day out here in Texas. It is springtime. It's starting to feel a little bit like summer. And if you are thinking, like some women do, like I certainly have thought years and years and years ago, that thought is not very exciting because a little thing called diet culture that goes, oh, are you swimsuit ready? Because it's coming right around the corner. And then that leads you down a whole cycle of shame and guilt and gross and ugh. I want to stop that. Let's just stop that right in the track. You know, there is no body that's specifically swimsuit ready, like all bodies are swimsuit ready. And the other thing I want to talk about very openly, honestly, and simplified down is this concept of yo-yo dieting that we sometimes do. Like, let's figure out how to stop yo-yo dieting. So my special guest today, her name is Jovanka Ciares, and she is the author of Reclaiming Wellness and several other books. She's a certified wellness expert, integrative herbalist, a nutrition educator and coach, and she offers lectures and workshops all around the world. She's studied nutrition with the best-selling author T. Colin Campbell, PhD, at his Center for Nutrition Studies in partnership with Cornell University. And she's also studied herbalism and plant medicine. She's a native of Puerto Rico, and she now lives in Los Angeles. So I'd like to welcome to the Simplifiers podcast, Jovanka Ciares. Hey, Jovanka.
How are you? Thank you so much for having me, Mary.
I am so thrilled you're here. And let's just get down to the brass tacks of it. Like, why is it that we as women, and let's be fair, men do this as well, but maybe they just don't talk about it as much as we do. Like, why do we get so obsessed with yo-yo dieting?
You know, I think our society has given us, we have had a disservice done to our younger generations. And by the time we come of age, we become young adults, we're all obsessed with the way that, you know, society wants us to look like, right? Like if you're not in a certain size, if you don't fit in a certain mold, then something must be wrong with you. Yeah. And more importantly, we start thinking that we cannot achieve happiness or success until we fit that mold. And that's a problem. And it's causing quite a lot of pain and harm. And we need to learn how to undo that damage for ourselves as professional women and the women that we are, the young people that we're raising to become amazing women in the future.
For sure. You know, it's interesting. Earlier this season, in the whole month of February, we really focused in on our bodies. What makes me think of a recent episode was Autumn Shields during that month talking about how to say no to diet culture, what it is. And once you start to realize that it is so prevalent in our lives, you know, that there's a certain thinness that is valued over all things that I think becomes so damaging to our self-esteem, to our confidence, and I dare say to our decision-making. Because I think when I make bad choices about food or my lifestyle, it's when I push the proverbial big red F it button in the sky and I go, ugh, it's too complicated. I'm too busy. It's too blah, 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 blah. And that's when you make bad choices, right?
It's also when you have a bad day, when you have been fighting with your spouse, when you've had a fight with your boss, when you've had a horrible commute.
Yes.
I mean, we have been indoctrinated. Our subconscious mind goes from fight or flight to I need something that will give me immediate satisfaction, that will make me feel better.
Yes.
Food being the easiest for us, right? Like, as opposed to doing other things that also give us satisfaction, like playing with our puppies or embracing our spouses or playing with our, babies. Instead, we go to the refrigerator and get that pint of ice cream. And but it's a cycle. It's a never-ending loop of I'm going to feel great by the rush of dopamine with the sugar. And eventually and very quickly, I'm going to have a down because now your brain is sending signals to your stomach. You don't have enough nutrients. This is sugar, it's great. I want a little bit more of it. And it keeps sending you signals, and you keep feeling bad, and you know that it's bad for you, but you go back to it because it gives you an immediate satisfaction.
Yes. And that reminds me of like James Clear's book, Atomic Habits, right? So there's what's actually happening in our brain on a chemical level is the cue, the craving, the response, the reward. And I have found that anytime I've been craving chocolate or sugar or caffeine or otherwise, it's a quick dose. You think, oh, this is it. This is what's going to give me the boost. And then you come down after the high very, very quickly. And then you start the cycle again. But I dare say that cycle also is what drives many of us, me included, well in the past, I don't do it anymore, towards like yo-yo dieting. The cue is, disgust. The craving is, I want a quick fix. The response is some highly restrictive diet or some crazy, diet pill or something that is messing with your body in big, big ways. The reward is you might lose a little bit of water weight quickly, but then you gain it all back. There's got to be something better.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, listen, every diet and any diet can help you get to where you need to get to, because it's a math equation. It's a basic math equation. It doesn't matter what kind of diet you want to get into. If you restrict nutrients enough and or for a certain amount of time, eventually you will lose the weight. But that is not the way, because it is not sustainable. At the end of the day, almost no diet is going to give you what you need 100% of the time. So we can talk a little bit about the reasons why and how I actually address it with my clients, and hope it'll help your audience as well.
Yeah, I definitely want to dive into the how. Maybe we start first by having you define what wellness means to you, specifically in this day and age. How would you define wellness?
Wellness is a state of being. It's part of our humanity. And it's actually, I would say, not just humanities, right? Like animals also crave and go after a state of wellness. It is a state of mind more than it is a physicality of what you see. So you might be fighting a particular condition or a disease, or you might be working towards a particular goal, and that does not mean that you're not well. It means that you are in the process of healing. But when you combine your mind, your body, and your soul, and you look at it as a whole, right? That's why they call holistic way of seeing yourself, and you realize my body, my mind, and my soul are communicating with one another. They are acting in the best way for our own, for the goals that we're trying to achieve. Then, and we understand there is balance in this process, in this daily process. And I recognize myself as somebody who is well, even if I still am fighting cancer or I'm fighting, Crohn's disease. Every day I'm doing something to restore balance in mind, body, and soul. And that to me is perfection for this moment. And that is a state of wellness.
Yes, yes. And, when you start to reshape your identity, then your choices that you make need to back up that identity. I think that there is something to that on a very, very deep level. And here's the rub, though, Jovanka, and I know I'm preaching to the gospel choir here when I'm going to say what I'm about to say. Here's the rub, is that why is it that people of color are rarely represented in the, billion-dollar industry of health and wellness out there? You do a Google search for yoga, what do you find? Pictures of very sweet, kind, blonde, very small women doing, downward dog. Like, how do we make a positive change here? Because if people of all shapes, sizes, and abilities and colors don't see themselves reflected in this, how can they possibly take on an identity that they belong?
Absolutely. And this is something that I mentioned in my book. It's twofold. It's number one, education, right? Recognizing that a lot of these practices, yoga being the perfect example, stems from communities of color, what we call multicultural communities, India, for example.
Yeah.
And once we start recognizing this is part of our ancestry, this is
Yes.
part of who we are, then let's reclaim that ancestry and the practices themselves, so that then we can actively participate and reclaim that state of wellness that we deserve. That is our natural birthright. But I also believe that the gatekeepers need to do more, right?
Yes.
Like if you look at a big wellness conference or a wellness retreat or these big supplement companies, for example, they have deep pockets, and we can actually encourage them to say, let's use some of these resources to go into certain communities and attract those people. And it will be great for you, for your business, right? More potential new clients. And it will be great for those communities to reclaim and re-embrace those wellness practices.
Totally. I mean, that makes me think immediately, if you go to conferences and you see only one size, color, or gender speaking from stage, you have the power to go directly to those conference event organizers and say, why? We want diversity. We want to hear different perspectives from different backgrounds. Same goes with your yoga studio or your dance studio or, the neighborhood, Facebook groups and communities. This is where positive change happens.
Absolutely.
So I'd like to read from your book, if you don't mind, because I think there's some beautiful things in here that build on what we're just talking about. This is from page 5 of your book. You say this: ideally, wellness is how we unlock and access the full potential lying within. This isn't about following lifestyle rules to a T, but rather understanding our choices and owning them. We will certainly encounter roadblocks during this process, and that's to be expected. Pursuing wellness with an all-or-nothing attitude is a nonstop ticket to frustration and failure. Instead, if we accept ourselves and trust the natural process, things will slowly fall into place. Wellness is about creating balance and strengthening the connection between our mental, physical, and spiritual selves. And as a result, what we do to achieve wellness will vary depending on what needs more attention at a particular time. And again, I think one of the things that I've learned on my own journey, just really to, I love the word that you use of reclaiming, like reclaiming my body, reclaiming myself, is to understand that there is no quick fix. And when I go fast is when I make bad choices. Mm-hmm. And so it really requires going slow and being intentional. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, it's beautiful what you just said, and truly heartbreaking, right? We, again, going back to that initial thought of our society has indoctrinated us to believe that we need instant gratification.
Yes.
That's the reason why we want to go somewhere and get a pill that will get us to fill in the blank as quickly as possible. Yeah. But nothing, even though your body is in constant movement and constantly changing, nothing in our humanity happens quickly. Very few things happen quickly, right? Like even babies, who are the ones that change very quickly, still it takes them weeks to learn how to walk, right? And they fall and they fail over and over and over. But they don't have the indoctrination yet to feel like, oh, I'm a failure, I'm just going to stay down and never learn how to walk, right? And if we can only get back to that childlike belief system that, yes, our bodies are constantly changing, even the parts that we cannot see, we are constantly evolving, but we also are going to change slowly. You didn't get to being 30 pounds overweight overnight. Yeah. You're not going to get out of it overnight. And so rather than focus on what we can see, let's focus on how we feel. Let's focus on our conversation, our internal conversation, which is one of the biggest problems when it comes to that concept of yo-yo dieting.
Yeah, for sure. So let's talk about the how. And, specifically, I want to be really clear. When I was reading your book, I really, really appreciated this about what you shared, is that there's no good food and bad food. Like it's taking those labels off of food together. Because I think we tend to demonize the things that are on our plate and go, oh, we can't have that, or that's just a reward or whatever. It's none of that. Like, scrap all of that vernacular entirely. And knowing that more plant-based whole foods in our meal actually does give us that life-affirming energy and does help us in such big ways. So let's talk about that. Like, what are some practical ways that we can incorporate more plant-based whole foods into our meals, especially when it feels like we're really limited on time?
That's a great question. So there's a couple of things to consider. Recognizing what you like is the first and foremost thing, right? Like, when you're making big changes, now all of a sudden you expect me to eat less meat and incorporate more things. That's one thing I have to change. And then on top of that, I need to eat more colorful stuff or more things that I consider, because I've been indoctrinated to believe that they're healthy but not tasty or not fun or not exciting or satisfying. Right. And then on top of that, you want me to do this at a larger scale, right? There's too many changes, and that could actually cause people to push back. If instead you go with what you know and what you love, that is a great first step, right? I have a system that I call the reduce and replace method, if you will, where instead of having people say, we know that ice cream is not really great for you because you're pre-diabetic, and you have to completely remove ice cream, even though you've been eating ice cream for years and it's just the one thing in your life that brings you comfort and joy. How about we just reduce that? Let's reduce that by 50% and replace that, fill in that void. Because when we remove things from our lives, whether it is physically, emotionally, or mentally, we leave a void. So how do we fill that void, and with what? Let's fill that void with something that you already like. Say you don't like bananas, but you like apples, or perhaps you like this little, chocolate, raw chocolate things that are like low in sugar and they're like satisfying. Maybe we want to reduce and replace that way. Reduce the amount of ice cream and replace with something that we know is a little healthy. We try that for a few days to a few weeks. We notice how our bodies feel with every single change. We recognize it, we accept it, we embrace the change, we embrace the feeling, whether it is negative or positive, because they're all valid. Yeah. And then we move on and up from there.
Yes. And, take a simple example for me. I mean, I'm 44 at the time of this recording. When I was a kid, I loved milk chocolate. Anything that came in a wrapper, I was all about, right? But as my taste buds have changed and as I've gotten a little bit older, I've noticed that milk chocolate just feels a little, I don't know, not right. And I've just gone down the scale to more and more all natural or darker kind of bitter chocolates. And that's such a silly example, but that is an evolution of choosing, reducing one, replacing with another. And the funny thing is when you move to a darker, like an 80 or 90% chocolate, you don't want a whole bar. You just want a little nibble of a taste. And I find I love chocolate as like a tiny bite with some fresh blueberries as well. Like the balance of those twos or raw almonds or things like that. That's sort of what you're talking about there, right?
Absolutely. And that's my go-to. It's like the high chocolate cacao rate with raw almonds. Because so slowly but steadily, your brain will still understand, I'm still getting that rush of dopamine. Yes. I am getting all the fabulous happy hormones, serotonin, and all kinds of other hormones that the chocolate is actually causing your body to secrete. So even if you may not feel great in the moment, know that there's change that's happening that might be slow moving, but there is something amazing happening inside your body. And perhaps the first day you're going to be like, I just want to have the whole bar. But if you do that day after day, at the end of, say, a 10-day period, you might notice, I haven't noticed that I need it, or I'm craving that whole bar. I mean, just a little square is all I need. Yeah. And that's another thing that's important. Change doesn't have to be aggressive, right? Not everything has to be, I took caffeine and I'm waking up. It doesn't have to be a push. It could be just a lift. It could be just like a grandmother's hug from the inside out.
I love that as a visual too, because I think, again, when I think about restrictive dieting, I think a very stern army general, and there's the undertone of you're doing it wrong, so just give up now. And I think that's goes at play when we're making decisions and putting things into our shopping cart and at the grocery store, or deciding to cook dinner, or, ordering something on an app to immediately get to you. I think I think we're old enough now, if you are in my kind of same age range, to know what to do, right? we know on an intellectual level what to do and what are good choices that are life-affirming foods on our plate. But on an emotional level, that's where I think sometimes we need to heal and go, what is the underlying message with this type of food versus this type of food? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think when we talk about foods, we evolved through the years, right? And in our 20s, we may have had more McDonald's than we have now, or than in our 30s, and then in our 40s, we start realizing I am now recognizing that I want to live well into my 50s and 60s and 70s. When you're 20, you don't recognize that. You feel like you have all the time in the world. For those of us over 40, and I am in the same age group as you, we want to do better because we now know we have, an amazing life ahead of us. But we also have our parents to care for. We have our children to care for. We are at this prime life-giving years, and it's important that we make decisions that are going to carry us well into our 40s and 50s and 60s. So no longer can we actually say, I'm just going to, do crazy things because I have all the time in the world to heal or to do over.
Yeah, and there's two things that come up when you talk about that. One, I think you're absolutely spot on. Like, it's not a big, massive change all at once. I think it's a very slow, incremental thing, and kind of come at it with a little bit of a playful spirit. So one thing that I started doing a couple of years ago, and it's really, again, when you put a playful spirit towards something, less of a army general, you're doing it wrong kind of spirit, it's a whole different perspective. And the one thing that I've been doing for the last couple of years is every week when I go grocery shopping, I get one fresh vegetable that I've never cooked with before. Just one. Not like a whole grocery cart full, just one. Like maybe this week is, I don't know, Swiss chard. Like another week may be an artichoke heart or whatever. And just play and see if I can incorporate that into a salad or into a stir fry or whatever. And some things I try, I'm like, oh God, no, that's not for me. But other things I'm like, who knew? I like kale. I like chard. Like, who knew? And then it becomes, incorporated into your diet. It's these simple things.
Absolutely. I mean, you're making my heart like sing with joy. It is one of the things that I tell clients all the time. You look at the rainbow. Yeah. What color in the rainbow have you not kind of like consumed in a while? Go to the supermarket and find something in that color, and then Google recipe for whatever that vegetable or that particular ingredient is, and you'll find a plethora of options. Yeah. And then you can dress them up. You can figure it out. There's so many amazing things. If somebody's curious enough or has enough time, then you can say, go further. Yeah. Learn about where does it grow? Like, what are the nutrients of this particular food? And once we start to learn, it's impossible not to love. Yeah. Right? It's impossible. It's much harder to love something that we don't know or don't understand. But once we understand, we just want more of it.
Totally. And it just made me think then the up level from there is to start to figure out what's in season in your area. And then think about, well, what am I eating on my plate? Can I eat a little bit more local, a little bit more in season, so it's not food that's been shipped across the planet to get to my plate? That's true. Then we're talking, mic drop. It's good stuff there.
Yeah.
So I want to shift gears a little because I think that there's one plant that tends to get not as much love and spotlight, and that's actually herbs. So why do you feel like herbs are an important secret weapon to healing and to a healthy lifestyle?
I love herbs. I mean, I've been playing and utilizing them in my practice for a decade now. There's a number of reasons why I love them. I can mention 2 or 3 right now. Number one, we all know them. We are familiar with them. We're comfortable utilizing them for cooking, and we would call them spices in some cases, or we call them botanicals when we're talking about supplements.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we're talking about plants and parts of the plants that are used for our benefit. Number 2, every culture in the world has used plants as medicine at one point or another. It doesn't matter where you're from or where your ancestors come from, we've all used them. And number 3, and going back to that argument that we need that instant gratification, very few things other than herbs, in my experience, can actually help people feel better relatively quickly. And so when somebody comes to me and says, I've had all this hormonal disruption for months and months, and I don't know what to do, and I'm getting perimenopausal, and I'm too young for this, I tell them, you know what, I'm going to give you some shatavari to consume, to add to your smoothies in the morning, just as an example. And they come back to me 3 weeks later and says, oh my God, I feel like I haven't felt in weeks or in months. And so they become kind of converts, right? They start to realize, oh, there's something good to this lifestyle. It's easier than to change habits and accept new ways of eating and living once people start feeling better, right? When somebody's in pain, it's very hard. They want to address the pain first, and herbs provide that quote unquote instant gratification. And I say that with trepidation because nothing will be instantly gratifying when it comes to botanicals and the healthy living world. Everything takes time. But with herbs, you're gassy, you take a little fennel tea and and the gas will dissipate within 20 or 30 minutes. You're going to feel really great about trying more.
Yeah. And so again, when we think of herbs, it's not just in our spice rack. It's medicinal plants, botanicals, teas. Correct. Am I thinking anything else?
Yes, we're there. So the way you consume the plants vary greatly, right? Like you can do a tincture, which is those tiny little bottles you may have seen in the health food store that have a droplet.
Yes.
It could be a tea. It could be any other kind of concoction. So it could be cold water or hot water. It could be in pill form. It could be in powder form. We use the roots all the way up to the flowers of the plant. So depending on what plant and what part of the plant you're using, it'll determine how you consume it, how you administer it.
While I was overseas in England, one of my favorite teas that I drank over there, a little harder to find in the States, but I'm sure I can find it in some specialty shop, is pure saffron tea. And it was so tasty because it's a calming tea. It really helps if you have stress or anxiety, but it was a beautiful tea that didn't have a lot of caffeine or any at all, I don't think. That I just loved over there.
Yeah. And saffron is considered one of the kings of the herbal world because they're very expensive, but it's also incredibly potent. There's a million others out there for almost everything that affects the human body. There will be one or 2 dozen plants that will help you. So if something doesn't work for you, try something else until you find the one that actually works well for you.
And I think that's, again, with a little bit of a playful spirit, you find your local Indian market or Chinese market where you can find some beautiful imports of things that are just magical and slightly scary, and you give it a go, right? And not everything's going to taste exactly to your taste level, but I think that's where you can start to incorporate new things and try working a little bit outside the box to expand your palate.
Absolutely. And if you feel like a little bit of trepidation about it, start with the ones that we call spices, right? Like the culinary ones that you find in the supermarket.
Yep.
For ingestion, and then use the other ones for topical purposes. Like you can buy a salve to put on your bruises or your cuts and bruises, and then you can start, playing with the herbal world that way. So you don't have to go all out into the very complicated ones that you might feel a little bit scared of, and then take it from there.
I remember a couple of years ago, before COVID, my friend Julie in England did these foraging nature walks where she would take us into these beautiful forests in the middle of nowhere, England, and we would forage for wild garlic. And I'm like, what? You could just grab a thing out of the ground and start eating it? Like it blew my mind. And wild garlic, if you've never seen it before, looks nothing like garlic.
Nothing like it.
It's just this big green weed. And she picks one out and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, that doesn't look like garlic. And she's like, no, wait, taste a bit of it. And we learned how to bake it in fresh, all natural bread. It was amazing.
Oh, incredible.
Changes your world. Yeah. And again, I think that's what it is. It's expanding your perspective of what's possible. And then you realize like, oh, actually, when I do listen to my body, when I do hear what she or he or they want and need, then you start to realize that very rarely does it want prepackaged fast food or things that are high fat and very high sugar that are meant for cravings, quick cravings, in a long-term kind of way. I just start to, that seems less satisfying for me over time.
Yeah, it takes on average 21 to 28 days for our taste buds to change. Not just habits to change, but our taste buds. But if you try it slowly but steadily, right? You don't need to completely give up your potato chips, but you are allowing your taste buds to be excited about something other than potato chips.
Yes.
You will still enjoy them, but you will also enjoy so many other things.
Yes. And in your book, you've got a thing called the Reclaiming Wellness Method. And the whole book goes through 7 different wellness practices. I highly encourage you guys all to take a peek at this book because I think that there's a lot of new things in here that I've not really heard in this way, shape, or form. And one of those things that I thought was quite surprising was music and community. So if people are out there going, hang on, what does that have to do with dieting? How does that have to do with a healthy lifestyle? Like the people that are out there that are really desperate to stop yo-yo dieting, tell us, like, what role does music and community play in all of this?
Yeah, that's a great question. Look, music is the one series of sounds or the one wellness practice that we've been practicing since we were in utero, right?
Yeah.
Because we can hear the sound of our mother's voice. Almost, it sounds like a song. And is one of the few things that affect almost all of us. And changes our state of mind. Yeah. We can practice music, right? Whether it is enjoying it, listening to it alone, but the vast majority of us embrace it in community. Whether it is because you listen to it in the radio, or somebody told you about it, you talk to your friends about it, you go to a concert, you learn to play an instrument. So community attached to music, to me, is one of the most powerful ways to help us stay well, right? We also know that people that have a strong sense of community and have a strong community live longer and happier, more fulfilling lives than those that do not.
Yes.
So when you have the ability to communicate and truly emote, express your emotions, express your frustrations, have somebody there to be an accountability sort of grounding cog for you while you're making big changes in your life, your chances of surviving, thriving, and succeeding at those changes will exponentially increase.
Yeah. And, that just made me think of a part in the book that page 123, you talked about author Dan Buttner's book, Blue Zones, and this is so fascinating to me. So there are 5 regions that are what are called the top blue zones, where people tend to experience a higher quality of life. Now, if you're listening and you live in one of these 5 places, well done you. Okinawa, Japan, Icaria, Greece, Sardinia, Italy, Loma Linda, California, and the Nicoya Peninsula in Costa Rica. So interesting. And that these people shared 9 common characteristics or lifestyle choices. So I'm just going to share this real quick. The 9 were moderate or regular physical activity, life purpose, stress reduction, moderate caloric intake, a plant-based diet, moderate alcohol intake, especially wine, any engagement in spirituality or religion, engagement in family life, and engagement in social life. I mean, when you list those 9 off, in my head, I'm going, yeah, I want that. I want that. I want that. Like, what am I going to do to move to Costa Rica soon? Like, you know, I think these are all natural human desires, especially being part of a community and belonging, right? But so many of us are so isolated. Why is that?
So many. I mean, and if you listen to the list again, almost all of them have not, only a handful of them have to do with diet.
Yes.
Right? So in this modern, Western world society that we live in, we believe that, once I get to a certain size, all of these other things are going to fit in the right place. When in fact, the people that live the longest and the happiest are telling you, yeah, diet is important, but there's 6 other things that are just as important. And we in this modern society are not paying attention to it. We are not engaging with each other. And when we do is to fight each other over politics or religion or whatever it might be. How about instead we find the people that we have something in common to start with and build community and find something that brings us joy every single day. I think in this society we've learned to become more individualistic than be part of a community. And I'm not at all talking about politics. I don't want people to start thinking, now all of a sudden this person wants us to become fill in the blank. I'm talking about, what about your friends? What about your cousins? What about your neighbors, your coworkers? What do you have in common with these people? And how can you help each other, especially in times of need, but also when you're all happy and joyful, and find ways that bring you joy more days than not.
Yes, preach, 100%. One thing that has worked for me, when I was living overseas in England, I found 2 beautiful communities over there that I have to just mention. One is Morning Gloryville, which they do sober, very early in the morning dance raves in the middle of London, 6:00 in the morning. People show up and it feels like a big festival, and you do that for a couple hours and then you head off to work right after that. And 2 is the ecstatic dance community. And there's one in London and there's one here in Dallas, Texas that I've plugged into. And ecstatic dance, if you've never done this before, anyone that's listening, I just encourage you, write that down on a piece of paper and Google it later. It's incredible. I mean, there's no other way to say it. If you've experienced dance in a free way where there's no choreography, there's no doing it wrong, you can dance, you can lay down, you can do whatever you want. It's really feeling the music, being part of a community. And then there's sound baths and all of the beautifulness there that I think music on a very large scale is... it's vibration. It is energy and movement, right? That does change you on a cellular level. So,
it also causes, just like chocolate and sugar, it causes a dopamine reaction, happy hormones, reducement, the reduction of stress, especially stress hormones. So you don't have to attain those levels of joy and wellness just with food. You could do it with music. You could do it with community. There's many other ways.
So much here. Jovanka, I really love the book. So I encourage everyone, the book comes out today. And it's called Reclaiming Wellness, Ancient Wisdom for Your Healthy, Happy, and Beautiful Life. So you can find that at your local favorite bookshop around the corner or anywhere online as well. And I think one of the things that I really appreciated about your book in particular is that you took the time to really enlighten us about the historical context of a lot of these wellness practices that we sort of take for granted. But again, when you know where it's rooted from, it means something different on a deeper level. And that we all get to play is such a beautiful thing.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. It was definitely a beautiful labor of love, and I learned so much in the process. I thought I knew a lot, but when I was researching it, I was like, oh my God, it was like a constant, like little aha moment. And I certainly trust that people will find it enlightening too.
And if anyone's listening here and they're like, yeah, but I'm kind of addicted to sugar. What do I do about that? I really encourage you. Everything that we talked about in today's episode, you can find over at the show notes, thesimplifierspodcast.com. And Jovanka has been very kind to give our listeners a free little report that really helps you reduce sugar cravings with herbs and in a very natural way. So go over to the show notes. You'll find that. You can click on there and download that as well. It's just a way to take a baby step towards something different.
Absolutely.
So, Jovanka, I've got a few questions that I like to ask everybody as we wrap up. So I'm just going to quick fire wrap it into it. So question number 1. Tell us, what's one book or blog that you're reading these days that's either inspiring you or poking holes and challenging your belief system?
Great question. There is a book that I have it here because I just started reading it. It's called The Abolitionist Handbook by Patrice Cullors. I think that's the way you pronounce her name. Yeah. She's a New York Times bestselling author. A friend gave it to me as a gift. So I didn't even know about the book, but the book essentially is just 12 steps to challenge you to become, to abolish anything in society that is plaguing us, that is not allowing us to live our best life. I think in her particular case, she's exploring racism, but it can be used for almost everything that is considered just negative and a problem within our society today.
Love it. I haven't heard of this book, so we'll link that up in the show notes if you guys are curious about it as well. Don't forget, that's thesimplifierspodcast.com. All right, so tell us, who's one person, somebody you know personally in your network that you just feel is up to brilliant things. We could shine a spotlight on them, and who knows, maybe one day we'll have them on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you for that. I have a friend that she's a colleague, and she was actually featured in the book. She is a Black vegan chef based in Atlanta. And her name is Janae Claiborne. She is the owner of a blog called Sweet Potato Soul. And she has a lot of great recipes. One of the reasons why I love her recipes is because they're super simple. Some of them have 5 ingredients or less. Almost every recipe can be done in 30 minutes or less. And she's warm and accommodating and just really lovely and doesn't push that whole idea of like, you have to be vegan or you have to be this or you have to be that. She's like, here is a lot of great food. Have at it.
I love it. It sounds like she's right on track. Like this. Yeah. We'll link her up in the show notes for you guys as well if you want to check her work out as well. So I believe gratitude and simplicity go hand in hand. Tell me, what's one thing you're grateful for today?
This morning I was grateful for my cat. This was a cat that was supposed to be a foster. We were helping a neighbor that was in trouble and couldn't care for the cat. And we failed at fostering him. Eventually we fell in love. Oh. And this morning he's young, so he was tearing up the house and I could not sleep past 4:30 in the morning. And, but then when I woke up, he just had that beautiful face and you're like, he's like, I'm the friend when you don't feel like you have any friends, I am the friend that will be there. And so I am grateful for all furry creatures, all furry friends.
Oh, I love that. It's so sweet. So again, you can find Jovanka and all of her social media handles over at thesimplifierspodcast.com on the show notes, and that's where you can link up with her directly. Is there one in particular where you like to be more than others? Facebook, Instagram, otherwise?
That's a good question. YouTube is probably the one that I tend to participate the most.
Yes. And you've got some really great videos on there. So definitely check that out. So my final question for you today is this. And again, thank you so much for your time today. Someone somewhere is listening to us right now, and she's thinking, yeah, I don't know. This sounds like a lot, and I don't know how to make a big change. I've tried a bazillion things. I just don't think that this is right for me. She's feeling a bit discouraged. What's one thing you could whisper into her ear right now just to encourage her in this moment?
That's a great question. I would either remind her or let her know that her body is a universe as incredible and vast and exciting and unknown as the universe that we know out there today. She's unique. She is special. And she does have the answers within her. She might need a little bit of guidance getting through and maneuvering through the world that we know today, but the answers are already within her, and she will get there.
Yeah. You're doing enough. You're doing great. Keep going.
Yeah. You are amazing.
Jovanka, thank you so much for your time today. Big love.
Thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun. Thank you.